Well, hello, readers. Trisha Goyer here, and I am so happy to introduce a new friend, Alyssa Roat. So, first of all, Alyssa, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having
Sorry
me.
about this dog. This dog barking. So, Alyssa, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
For sure, yeah. Well, today I think we're going to be talking about one of my YA fantasy books, but I've written a few different things. I have a YA fantasy trilogy. I have a series of sweet Christian romances.
Okay. I
Written
did not know
some.
that. We're going to talk about that too then.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then I have some superhero novels that I've also co-authored. So when I'm not writing, I also uh, I was an agent at one point. Now I work with Mountain Brook Inc.
Okay.
With their speculative fiction imprint. So
Ooh.
yeah, getting to work with a lot of really fun, Christian speculative fiction.
That is so awesome. I love it. Okay, so the book that I'm in the middle of reading right now is Wraithwood, and it won Realmaker's audiobook of the year. The audiobook is so good. That's what I'm doing. I'm listening to it on audiobooks. I have it here on Audible. It's just such a I'm trying to describe it because it's so interesting. Like you want to know what's happening, but there's also this like fun element to it. Like her uncle is just like sitting in a church pew, and then the next minute he's like in the next church pew, and you're like, what is going on? Who are these people? Why is there no electricity in the house? Like, there's all these questions. There's all these secret rooms they can't go into. So I would say like it's intriguing and there's elements of suspense, but it's not like so scary. It's like in a fun way. I don't know how to explain it. Is that like what you were trying to do with
I
the
would,
book?
yeah, I would say that definitely the vibe that I'm going for is whimsical and mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I read a lot of the old British children's fantasy with Diana Wynne Jones and Susan Cooper and E. Nesbit and those sorts of authors, where
Uh huh.
a lot of times the story was built on children usually discovering somewhat magical places
Yeah.
within the real world, and that's kind of the vibe that I was going for.
Yeah. And it's totally so it's so like I would have no problem with my 12-year-old reading it because it's not like creepy or it's mysterious, but it's also interesting and like quirky. Like you said, whimsical. I think whimsical is a great word. And I think when you see the cover, I mean, the cover is just amazing. But you might be like, "Ooh, that looks really scary." No, no, it really isn't. Like it's mysterious, and I love that about it. So how did you get the idea for Wraithwood?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I was saying, that's the sort of thing that I grew up reading.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those authors around the same time as C.S. Lewis were writing that sort of
Yes.
thing. And I was actually 16 when I started writing it.
What?
Yeah,
No way.
yeah. So about 8 years ago, I was like, I just wanted to write something kind of fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
had the idea of like this mysterious mansion and this uncle that this girl doesn't know, and she has to go stay there for the summer. And I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that it was going to be fun and maybe magical and fantastical. And then before I knew it, I had a 3 book YA fantasy series on my hands.
That
So
is so cool. That's amazing that you started it at 16. And I think now that you say that, like I could see the elements. Like it feels like she really is a teenager, like dealing with these things. I think sometimes you read about teenagers and you're like, I don't know if the author got, got it exactly right. They seem like too grown up or something, but she feels like she's a teenager, like her parents are going off and they're leaving her and she doesn't know this uncle and she has to hike down this road and then all these things are happening and there's noises in the night. Like it's so like I don't know, a little bit Nancy Drew, but with some whimsy. So it's a super fun read. And I'm excited. First of all, I'm excited to finish reading it. I'm enjoying the audiobook very much, but I'm excited because it's the first in a 3 book series. So tell us about the other 2 books. And you can hold up your covers too, because I'm sure you can see your
sure.
covers better than you can see it on
Okay.
my phone.
Well, we have the first book was Wraithwood that we've been talking about. Second book is Mortizan, which is her continued adventures in,
Ooh.
not to give spoilers, but in the sort of magical worlds that she
World.
finds.
You're like, how
Um,
can I say this without giving too much away? Because Trisha will be really mad if I spoil the book for her right now.
right. And then the third book just released today, actually. It's Castle On, and it's the conclusion of the trilogy and the conclusion of her story. So she starts out 14 at the beginning of the series, and by the end, she's 17. So
Oh, so cool. Well, congratulations for that
thank
releasing today.
you.
I did not know that when we scheduled this, so it's perfect timing. I'm
It really
excited.
was.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we get to follow her over all these 3 books, and you said, like, it's basically 3 years that we're gonna be following her, which I think she's a fun character to follow. Without giving too much away, what can people expect of the next 2 books also?
I think there's, there's a lot of mystery that happens in the first book. I think it keeps going in each of the books that they're very much based on. She's trying to solve the mysteries of some magical things so that she can defeat bad guys, trying not
you're
to
like
spoil the
you're
book
like
for
you're
you.
like just like choosing your words wisely.
Yeah, so a lot more of that mystical. It becomes more fantastical. We get more into
Mm,
the explanation of these things that at the beginning of the first book don't quite make sense yet, and she's trying to figure out. She really gets immersed in this world,
mm.
um, and
And
yeah,
what
it
and like
becomes
her
more
mother's
fantasy.
involvement, is that gonna come up? Like how her mother's involved and
Oh, for sure, for sure. There's a
okay.
lot of family stuff involved here. It's yeah,
Oh, so and I love that you said you started when you were 16 and the third book released. So this has been like a journey, like a awesome journey that you've been on seeing these books come to life.
right. Yeah, it's been really cool to start writing the first one when I was 16. I finished the first draft of the third one in college, but none of them released until after I was out of college and they'd gone through many edits.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but what I love is that you have the ideas and that has come to life now and you're holding the books in your hands. I think that is so cool. And so I want to hear more about these other genres that you've written to cuz I think I because I write lots of genres. I think that it's so fun to see authors that write multiple genres. So tell us more about those books.
yeah. So, these three books that we've talked about are the ones that I've written just as a solo author. And then all my other books are co authored with Hope Bollinger.
Okay.
And she's written plenty of her own books as well. But we typically write romances together. And in August, the fourth and final book in our Sweet Christian Romance series will be coming out. And
Oh,
each book
good.
there, it's the Roseville Romances, and each book follows two creatives falling in love. So the first one, Picture Imperfect, is an author and illustrator. Second one, Finding Harmonies, singer songwriter. Third one is a director, an actress in the theater, and then
Uh-huh.
the fourth one will be in film. So each of them is them falling in love over the course of a creative project.
That is so cool. So how did you come upon co-authoring? Because I love to co-author. I have a book come turning today that I'm co-authoring with my son Nathan, who's 28, and I love because I'll come up with an idea and I have no idea how it'll work in the story, and then he'll like weave it in, and he'll come up with an idea, and then I'm like, oh, we could tie it with this character, and so it's so fun, I think, to bounce ideas off someone. So why did you decide that you wanted to co-author?
Yeah, it was. So Hope and I went to college together. We were in the same writing program, and our co-authoring journey began when we were in the same journalism class,
Oh wow.
and thought it would be really funny if we turned into our professor the worst article ever written and tried to break every journalism rule that he taught us in one article. And we had so much fun that we decided that we needed to write more things together. So we wrote some more articles together. And then we ended up writing some superhero stories together. And that eventually led to these romances. So we never expected in the beginning to be writing books together, but discovered we had a lot of fun bouncing ideas off of each other.
That is so cool. Do you feel like you like motivate each other too when someone's like stuck, the other person will like push through and help the other person get motivated again?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Plotting out the books is a lot of fun too because we
Mhm.
can just sit on the phone and say, okay, what's going to happen next? And when one of us can't think of what's going to happen next, the other one will come up with an idea and we're like, yeah, that's a really good idea. And we keep going.
That is awesome. So you have the superhero series and this series and the sweet romances. What do you have more coming out that you're working on, or are they in the same genres or different genres?
Yeah, that's kind of the crazy thing right now. For the first time in a long time, I don't really have other things booked. This book that just came out today,
Yeah,
and we
which is a
have
lot
the
of work when you're releasing a book. Yeah.
yeah, we have the romance coming out in August, and then we have a kind of spin-off story. It's not a sequel, but a spin-off to the superhero books coming out in October. And then after that, I don't have anything currently contracted, so we'll see
Okay.
what I do next.
Oh, we'll find out which genre. Which genre is going to rise to the top.
I don't even know yet.
You don't
So
even know yet. What is your favorite genre to write when you think about all three of the different types of genres that you write?
I think fantasy is my favorite. I just really like to make stuff up, and I like all of the world building that comes with fantasy and creating the systems and magic and all that sort of thing and how it works. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that is so fun. And you really can, I mean, when you're creating your world and creating your own magic and fantasy, you could like, oh, well, this is how time shifting is going to work, or this is how this is going to work. And that is so fun that you can, then in the next book, even add another layer that, you didn't even realize in the first book. So it is super fun to figure out those things. So as you're writing, are you more of a seat of the pants writer, or are you more of you have to have the whole thing plotted and know exactly where you're going?
it depends. Co-authoring, we have to have everything written out kind of
Yeah.
beforehand since there's two of us and
Mhm.
we might be writing at different times and it would not go very well if one of us suddenly took the plot in a whole different direction. We were like,
Where did that go? Yeah.
wait, now what's happening? But when I'm writing by myself, I kind of a chaotic writer. I will start with several ideas bouncing around
Mhm.
and kind of a general ending in mind. So I usually have a beginning and an ending, and then I just see what happens until I get there.
Yeah.
And then you have to edit, of course, because it's a mess. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find myself doing that more and more. It's like, "Ooh, what if I added this?" And then later I'm like, "Why did I add in all these things?" Like, this is a lot to try to figure out how to weave it all together. But I think our creative brains has fun. They have just fun trying to figure those things out and make sure it makes sense. And it's just fun being creative in that way.
oh yeah, I remember in college, my roommate and I, as I was writing the second book in this trilogy, had a big whiteboard out and we were drawing like family trees and trying to figure everything out so that I hadn't written myself into a hole. And
Yes. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool that you've had these supportive people around you to work with you and to help you, and it's so encouraging. So as you are, releasing these books into the world, what kind of feedback are you getting from readers who are, getting caught up in these story worlds?
I think that kind of what you were talking about is what people are really feeling from these books is
Mhm.
I get a lot of, this reminds me of when I was growing up and I was
Mhm.
reading those fantasies and this has that magical, whimsical feel that I remember from
Mhm.
being a kid. So, they're not necessarily children's books, and I think
Yeah.
most people who have read them are teens and adults.
Yeah.
I mean, they are meant for teens, but I think it kind of has a lot of that nostalgic feel
I
of
think
what
it's
we
so.
enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And it just, yeah, it's like, I don't know. Even though it's mysterious, there's like a smile on my face when I'm listening. Like, oh, this is this is really fun to listen to. So I always love books like that. So you also work with other authors. So tell us about that and like what you have even learned working with other authors.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I've worked for a few different agencies, houses, etc. right now my full-time job is in marketing for
Hmm.
just this large corporation. It's not
Yeah.
actually in publishing, but on the side, I still work with Mountain Brook Fire, who actually started publishing my books um, before I was working at Mountain Brook Fire.
Yeah.
So that's, eventually went from being an author there to, I mean, still being an author there because my books are there, to
Yeah.
also being the managing editor for Mountain Brook Fire, and so I get to go to realm makers and
Hmm.
talk to people there, and I get to work with uh, new authors, and I get submissions that I get to go through and see all these great ideas that people have, and
Yeah.
it's my job to help them hone and polish those ideas into something that we can put out into the world. And it's just really fun from a managing perspective to see it go from the initial stage of submission to editing to this polished, beautiful product that I'm, working with our publicist to help get out there into the world. So it's a
Yeah, it
lot of
is.
fun.
It is so cool when you see these ideas and then you're like, wow, like this is so creative. But yeah, there's editing definitely. I mean, I'm so thankful for editors when I turn in any of my manuscripts. I'm like, thank you so much for finding all those mistakes because you just make me feel so good. And I'm a homeschool mom and I'm part of a co-op. And just a couple weeks ago, the one that teaches the writing program there, she's like, can you just come and talk to the kids? They're all fifth and sixth and seventh graders about editing because they just are really giving their moms a hard time about it. And I was like, guess how many people edit my books? And they're like, one. I'm like, no, like five. We have like the editors that go over the story, and then you have the editors that look at the next level, then you have copy editors that read through it, and then you have people looking at the back cover. And I said, and it's awesome. And they're like looking at me. I'm like, because they make me look good. So when someone reads my books, they say, you are such a great writer. And I'm like, well, thank you. You should have looked at the first manuscript that I turned in. I would
Yeah,
not be here without all the editors. And so it was so funny because these kids that don't like their moms, like saying, well, this sentence isn't complete or this doesn't make sense, or, I'm like, this is awesome, guys. Like, you really should appreciate people editing and making your books better. And I think
yep,
that's so true that, it just having the other sets of eyes on it just makes it so much better.
yes. I was that homeschool student once
Were
upon a
you?
time, giving my mom a hard time. I hated having my stuff edited, and now I get antsy if I don't feel like I've shown it to enough people. Like, can I have another beta reader,
I
please?
know exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm working with my son. And so he did a lot of the first draft. And I just keep going over the same chapter. He's like, Mom, you got to move on and like finish editing the rest of this book. I'm like, I know, but I just keep finding more stuff. And it is like I'm like, I cannot wait for more people to read it and find more stuff to fix and make it even stronger and make the characters even stronger. It is almost like addicting when people can find stuff like, oh yeah, that would make the story stronger. But then of course it comes to the time where you just have to like let it go, and it is what it is, which is so amazing. Like if someone ever finds a typo, I'm like, how in the world did you find a typo? Because we had so
So
many
many
eyes
people.
on it. Yeah, so
Oh,
many
yeah.
people. Yeah.
Thank goodness
So,
for deadlines. That way I can't hold on to it editing it forever because I know it has to come out at a certain point. I have to turn it into the publisher at a certain point.
exactly. Yeah, I was teasing Steve Lobby because he's like, "Okay, how's it going?" I'm like, "Well, it might be in on the 15th at 11:59." He's like, "Well, I'll give you till 4 a.m. on Thursday." I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I will probably take till 4 a.m. So it's just like it comes to the point where you're just like, "Okay, it's done. It's going in." There's always going to be something you can find and fix and make a sentence stronger or make a paragraph stronger or make an interaction stronger. Yeah, so I am thankful too for deadlines. Otherwise, it would be so easy just to keep working on that. And then we wouldn't get to write all the books because we would still be working on the first book.
Yep, still on the
Yeah,
same one.
yeah. Well, that's so cool that you were homeschooled too, and because yeah, all these parents out there like it does pay off. They will appreciate editing someday.
They will. They'll
Yeah.
really want editors someday.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay, so you mentioned Realm Makers, and I've mentioned it too. Um, and I have only been there twice and love it. I didn't even, I mean, read much speculative fiction, and now I'm writing it and love it. So why don't you just tell a little bit about Realm Makers for those who might not be familiar, and then what the Realm Award is that your book won.
All right. Well, I'll give my little spiel for Realm Makers. I've been
Yeah.
going since I think 2018 or 2019. I
Okay.
can't remember
Wow.
which. And ever since the first time I went, I knew I'm like, okay, this conference, I need to go to this one every
Yeah.
year. It's just so much fun. Everyone is very creative. You'll find people in their fantasy costumes on any given
It's
day.
so fun. Yeah.
Um, so it's like a mixture of like a Renaissance con and a writers conference all mixed into one. Friendly as people, and
Yeah.
it's all focused on Christian speculative fiction. So people writing sci-fi, fantasy, other sorts of fantastical um, things. And yeah, I really enjoy how it's kind of like there are great speakers and you can pitch your book to agents and editors and that sort
Hmm.
of thing, mentor appointments, but also there's a costume ball and
So fun.
there's
Yeah.
a gigantic like bookstore vendor hall. So it's just a really fun mashup of the best of all worlds.
Yeah. And I think just it seems like it's a very young crowd. So I can't remember Scott Miner's the director. Him and Becky Miner are the directors. The percentage of people under 40 was like large. Like 70% of people under 40. I don't know. So it's all these really creative minds. And I think I speak at a lot of conferences, but I think a lot of conferences that have older people, they're so insecure. They're afraid to share their ideas. They're maybe writing a personal story. And so it's like really hard. And this one, they'll be walking by and they're like, if they took their lightsaber and they swatted the dragon and then flew up through the atmosphere, like there's all these things and just walking by, like, okay, that was really cool. It's like, it seems like there's more of, like working together and brainstorming ideas and not being afraid of like sharing about their dwarf that has 3 feet or I don't know the different things is like it just seems like it's a really fun conference. So like if you thought about writing, not that everyone's young because I'm there and I'm not under 40, but if you want some place where you just feel like you're going to be no one's going to laugh at you if the story that's set on 3 other planets with these creatures. Like it's a really cool place, but it's also very strong faith element. Like people caring for each other and time talking about God and there's faith in the workshops. It's a really neat environment, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, it's a really cool tie-in of both faith-filled and extremely nerdy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Whimsical and nerdy all at once. And I don't think I've ever been to a conference where they're just so supportive of each other. I remember the very first time I went, and I've known Steve Lobby since 1994, so we've known each other a long time. I was standing in the back of the room, and Kara Swanson was having like a book launch, and the room was packed, and she had a quiz about her book, and like there's like 60 or 70 people, and they were all answering about her book, and I was like, well, first of all, like I don't think could go to any conference and 60 or 70 people would like know all the characters and being able to answer questions about my book. It was just like, wow, they really care for each other and support each other. It's just a neat place to go. So, if you haven't read speculative fiction, Wraithwood is definitely one that would be fun to start with. And I think that you'll, like me, just like have a smile on your face when you're reading it. It's whimsical. It's reminiscent of maybe things that you read growing up. And it's not, spaceships, at least at book one. I don't think there's spaceships,
No
but
spaceship.
and so you think, if I don't like that kind of stuff, I think you might be surprised. So Wraithwood would definitely be one to try if you're like, hey, Trisha's been talking a lot of speculative fiction ever since she went to Realm Makers. Maybe I should try one. Well, this is one to try. So it would be very cool. And then a lot of people say, I don't want to start reading book one until all the books are out so that I don't have to wait. You don't have to wait because all the books are out today. as of today. So that's really cool. Now, all three also going to be on audiobook?
They will be. The first two
Okay.
are on audiobook now. The third one hasn't come out yet, but
Okay.
it
It'll be
will.
there. It will be there because my favorite's audiobook just because I could listen when I'm doing the dishes or driving somewhere. Yeah, so fun. All right, Alyssa. So for those who are interested, we got the titles of these books. Can you tell us more about the titles of your superhero books, and then you mentioned some of them, but also your sweet romances, just in case someone wants to pause the video and write these down. Then they'll have those. So tell us the titles of your books.
Okay. The superhero ones, they originally came out with just general market publishers, so they're not really Christian fiction. They don't have
Okay.
those elements, but they were written by Christians. So
Yeah.
that was,
Exactly.
they're Dear Hero and Dear Henchman, and they're chat fiction, all written through text transcriptions,
Oh,
messages,
cool.
and then the Roseville romances are the sweet adult romances,
Hmm.
starting with Picture Imperfect. You don't have to read those ones in order if you don't want
Okay,
to.
they're just standalone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what were the other titles for those? So you picturing.
Yeah. Picture Imperfect, Finding Harmony, Curtain Call, and then Getting Real will be coming out in August yet, but it's not
Oh,
out yet.
souls. I love those titles. Those are really, really cute. And then the question I always love to ask at the end, what are some books that you've enjoyed? It doesn't have to be recently, but just some books that you're like, hey, this is a really awesome Christian book and I just love it.
Well, this might be cheating a little bit, but I'm going to plug some books that aren't actually out yet, but
Oh,
they will
okay.
be in a couple months.
Oh, so write
One
them
that
down
I'm
because you're going to have to wait to find them.
one that I'm very excited for. It is up for pre-order. It just hasn't released yet. Is The Soul Mark by J.J. Fisher. Um, it's
Love JJ
it
Fisher.
won our Mountain Brook Fire Award, I think, last year, the year before. And it's kind of a mix of Pirates of the Caribbean with I don't even know. It's Pirates, Monte Cristo, kind of that sort of thing, but it's Christian fiction set on
And I
this.
interviewed Jasmine a couple months ago, I think.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's also has books with Enclave and another
Hmm.
publisher too. She's pretty prolific, but I'm very excited for this one. I'm a
And
little
what
biased.
was the name again?
The Soul Mark.
Okay, the Soul Mark. Okay, she might have
Yeah.
mentioned that when we were talking. All right.
So that's a good one. I mean, recently, you'll notice I read a lot of speculative fiction. I enjoyed Christiana Spiria's Stormwatch Diaries. They're middle
Okay.
grade speculative fiction, so those are very cute.
Yeah.
Um, so the Stormwatch Diaries, and
You're
there's so
like, which
many to choose
ones? I know.
from. But
Well,
those are
those will be
cute.
good. Yeah, those will be good. All right. So, where can people go if they want to know more about you, find out more information about your books? Where can they go to get all that information?
Right. Well, my website and socials are a pun. So my name is Alyssa Roat, and they're all Alyssa Roat, but it's ALYSSAWROTE.
I love that. I love that.
So alyssaroat.com or at Alyssa Roat on socials. Or you can just Google my name and, it pops up with the little author box and the books and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. Your last name is Roat because it's just like the perfect author name. I love it. I love it. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to see you at Railmakers in just a few months. It'll be great. And I'm going to finish this book and get on to the next one because I am loving it. But thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.